before your exam. You never know.
Miss Ethan,
Yes,
uh, I am having a quite serious cold, so I'm afraid that I cannot turn on my camera. So can you please record this lesson so that I can rewatch it when I recover?
absolutely. I record all of them,
Thank
but
you.
absolutely I will record it. Thank you. I hope you feel better.
Thank you.
Yeah, don't cough too loudly. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I don't know about you all, but when I cough now, I'm like holding in my coughs. I'm so afraid anyone will think I have COVID. So I'm just joking. I know you don't. So, okay, today's Thursday. So here's the agenda for this evening. I tried to plan it out. I even went through every single PowerPoint slide that I could do to highlight the ones we have to cover and the ones you can do on your own. So I went through everything. So we should be super efficient. I want to share with you a personal goal that I have is to get through the start of history to current day in world history. Actually do it. I've never done it. In the 6 years that I've been teaching high school, I've never been able to do it, but this year is my goal. Okay. Also, don't be shy. If you cannot turn on your camera, you should be sending me a private email that says, I can't. There's a problem with my computer. We need to meet, okay? Everyone should have your camera on. It is an expectation of online learning, okay? So I'm taking attendance, but that means I'm also going to deduct your participation points. So please be super, super mindful of that, okay? Thank you. Thank you. All right. So what are we doing today? What is the agenda? We're going to spend 20 minutes finishing the Paleolithic era, and then we're going to be done with that, okay? After that, we're moving on to the Kahoot review. I love mixing in some fun. So hopefully we can spice it up a little with two Kahoots that I found that are excellent. And then the third thing we're going to do is we're going to wrap up some homework. After that, I'm going to give you a small break. Don't worry. Maybe I'll even give you 5 minutes. If you're like me, you need to get up, get hot tea or water. So we will do that after we finish the homework portion. Then we're going to come back and we are going to do the Neolithic. We're going to get through all of the agricultural revolution. If I don't finish that tonight, you all will just move on. We have to. And then if for some reason we're doing amazing, we're going to move on and we're going to do one of your homework assignments together. You're probably like, why? One, I want you to get it done. Two, it is the most difficult and the most heavily weighted assignment you have to date. Okay? So that's why. So let's get started. Let's finish the Paleolithic era. This requires me to share my screen. So if we run into any problems, let me know. I put where we stopped last week, and then I stopped right here. We were talking about the Aborigines people in Australia, and we talked about this religion of the dream time. This is really important, really, for your final exam at the end of the year or at your semester exam to understand the origins of religion. Can anyone come off of mute and remind us what is two themes or things that we've talked about for the most ancient of religions? Like, what's the most basic? During the Paleolithic, what were they kind of believing, if you will? So I'll repeat that. What during the Paleolithic time were they believing? Anybody? Don't be shy. One thing you can say is those, remember the Venus figurines I showed you with big boobs and big breasts? What was that about?
Food.
Food? What'd you say? Fertile. Fertility. Yes. Schwan, yes. Good job. Fertility. So they believed in some sort of cycle of life and like the beauty of the female body being able to produce new life. Yes. Okay. let's move to this picture. This is a picture of dream time. And it's an ancient belief that spirits, the creation of the world, and that spirits, some other thing other than humans, had something to do with the creation of the world. We don't know everything about dream time, but we know that they would do these celebrations for the creation of the world. They believe that it was created, okay? So that's something we do know. All right, so here's a few things. We've talked about humans from Africa and humans going to Europe. Those cave paintings were in France, right? We talked about a country in Europe. We talked about how a lot of them go to Asia. What we haven't talked about is the Western world. United States, North America, Central America, South America. We know they went from Siberia to America. We've talked about that. We do know there is what's called a Clovis culture. You don't need to know it, but just like if you ever hear that, you'll know. And they were really big hunters. So we know they were hunter and gatherers, but in specifically North America, they were hunting the woolly mammoth. Did anyone catch the news today? What scientists are doing? Anybody? There's something exciting.
Like they are defrosting the mammoth.
Not only are they defrosting it, right? They're grabbing the cells and they're literally cloning it and like making their own mammoths. Wild, huh? They just got the funding. I mean, I don't know how I feel about that. We could be living in a Jurassic Park. So kind of cool. But the people disappeared. These Clovis people, these ancient people disappear. And we think, we're not really sure, but it coincides with the extinction of the woolly mammoths and other species of large animals. So it makes sense that if their animals they were hunting go extinct, that they would also go extinct. So just some interesting. And just remember, sorry, this map did not blow up well, but Siberia, that's how they crossed over, right? There was at one point a land bridge. So I just kind of wanted to illustrate that, how they come over really from Asia over through Canada, down North America to Central America. So if I ever asked you a question like, where did all people come from? The answer is still Africa, right? Okay. Sorry. And the main point of the Clovis people that going extinct is they went extinct with their animals, right? But we can't really... All of these videos in the PowerPoint, when you're studying for the exams, you'll just want to go through and watch them. I will only show you the most absolutely important ones. So I'm going to show you this one, but normally I would not take time to show you a video. We're just going to do a discussion, okay? So there are a couple theories related to the disappearance of the woolly mammoth. Video. It's like less than 3 minutes, and then we're going to have a discussion. So I'm just going to ask one of you to answer each question, okay?
When most mammoths and mastodons went extinct 13,000 years ago, it marked the beginning of an unsolved mystery. While theories abound, most scientists agree that it's likely to be one of 4 possible culprits: overhunting, widespread disease, climate change, or meteorite impact. Let's start with the theory that a cataclysmic meteorite was the bad guy. Scientists studying soils that were deposited about 13,000 years ago have found a black layer containing charcoal and microscopic diamonds. It's theorized that these are the result of a tremendous explosion caused by a meteorite that disintegrated in the atmosphere and hit the Earth in a hail of fragments. If so, the resulting wildfires and the smoke-darkened skies they produced could have caused the extinction. But other factors, such as a warming climate, can also make fires more common. And humans set large-scale fires too, which leave traces of charcoal. A second group of scientists theorize that a rapidly spreading disease struck the final blow that did the mammoths and mastodons in. Rabies, for example, can be passed between different animal species. But despite their searches, scientists haven't yet found evidence of such a disease. And theory is only as strong as the data supporting it. A third group of scientists argues that climate change was the main cause of extinction. The last ice age ended in North America around 17,000 years ago, as temperatures rose. But around 13,000 years ago, there was a kind of global cold snap. Could cold weather have caused shortages of the plants the mammoths and mastodons ate? Possibly. But other large mammals survived climate changes like this. The fourth group of scientists point the finger at a very guilty-looking suspect: humans, who have a bad track record for making other species extinct. Here we find at least one smoking gun. We know humans hunted mammoths and mastodons because we found spear points among their bones. But it's hard to prove that we hunted them to extinction. For some species that went extinct, there are few well-documented kill sites. For other species, none at all. In addition, these weren't defenseless prey. Modern weapons make it easy to kill off something as big as an elephant. 13,000 years ago, it wasn't quite so easy. In the end, we aren't sure who or what brought the mammoths and mastodons to extinction. But we're still on the case. And spectacular finds, such as the baby mammoth Luba, hold tantalizing clues. By studying her and future finds, scientists may someday solve the mystery.
Awesome. Okay, so let me plug my headphones in. Could someone real quick come off mute if they can remember all four? What major theories that caused the woolly mammoth extinction?
Widespread disease,
Yep. Perfect.
climate change,
Perfect.
overhunting,
Yep.
and one more I can't remember.
I guess it is the meteoroid.
Perfect.
There's some
Yep. Perfect. You got him. Overhunting, widespread disease, meteorite impact, and climate change. The one that we can point to that we have clear evidence for, at least for some of its impact, is overhunting, right? And if I were to ask, what is the piece of evidence? You might say they found arrowheads, right? Within the bones of dead woolly mammoths. Perfect. Excellent job. Okay, so humans into the specific. I just really want to point out Pacific. What is the Pacific, everybody? What do I mean when I say that? I think a lot of times students forget. The ocean, right? The Pacific Ocean. That's what we're really referring to. So it's the last of the human migration, last of the movement. So North America, we've got all these places, but it's the last, and they mostly moved by boat, okay? And it's so unique because think of Australia and New Zealand. Those are both really, not really, they are both islands, right? So they're going to have a common grouping of people that don't go too far out, come back in. So they're going to have these special languages, and we'll talk about those in a moment. So you can kind of see this Pacific migration, and you just these arrows, you don't have to memorize them, but you can see how strange and how intricate it was around all of these islands, not just Australia and New Zealand, but how they settled all of these places. And just remember, the Pacific migration is the last of all of them. Africa to Europe probably happened first. Africa to Asia and Europe probably happened at the same time. And we know that from Asia to the Americas, right? And then we know that the Pacific migration is last. They went mostly by canoe. To joke. This is not my vacation home. I wish. But what happens is they develop a similar language system all throughout the Pacific, except for Australia. So if you think about it as a historian, why might you theorize that the language in Australia would be different than all the languages of all these small islands? Any idea? No? Think about it. That might be a question I ask your opinion on for your very first exam essay, okay?
Sorry, can you ask again?
Sure. Why do you think that the languages on the islands of the Pacific Ocean are going to have commonality? They're going to be similar. Australia is going to develop its own language system that's very unique. What might be a reason why? Just think about it. It's a good question to ponder and theorize. I cannot prove it. Okay. I'm going to zoom through just a little bit. Does anyone know what these are or where they're from? Do. Anyone gone on vacation and seen one of these? I have not, for the record, in person. Oh my goodness, you're so close. So the Rapa Nui is the people, right? And these are the Moai, right? These heads, there's statues, and they're from Easter Island. They're from Easter Island. But we know, so here, okay, if you don't know what that is, that is South America, okay, today. And that's where Chile is. And if you look to the west of Chile, you'll see Easter Island. But you only see that little tiny black tick mark because it's really small in comparison to the mainland, right? So what happened is they get to the island, right, by boat. Boats are made of wood. And then they start to form some sort of belief or religious belief where they want to build things and worship them. So they start cutting down the trees to build and move these gigantic statues that weigh tons and tons and tons. But they start cutting down the trees at such a rapid rate that they kill them off, right? They're not growing fast enough. And these people get stuck on the island and essentially they die out. So when the Europeans went and discovered this Easter Island, they went and saw these huge heads coming out of the side of hills, and they didn't know what they were. They were like, what are these things? So historians today have called them the Moai, right? And Rapa Nui is the name of the people group that cut down all those trees. The trees were to help them transport, building like wheels and levers to help them get those heads down the mountain or up it. And they died off. Oh, so this video is really sad. It's kind of long. So I imagine you can watch it on your own because we just explained it. But make sure you can answer all these questions. So you got it right. From the Moai is what these big heads are called. Okay. They were believed to house the spirit of their ancestors. So the Rapa Nui really believed that the Moai were some sort of religious belief in the afterlife, that the spirits of the people who died would be in those giant heads. So anyway, you can read all the answers. They're there. But once they killed all the trees, they didn't have ships to take them where they wanted to go. So they got stuck on the island. SOS, if you don't know what that means, it's in movies a lot. It's when you're like stuck on an island and you need somebody in an airplane to see you, you write SOS. That's the joke, okay? So anyway, so the extinction of the Rapa Nui was an environmental extinction really early on. So we knew this people group moved to this island, but they died out because they literally destroyed their environment. Very similarly to how those Clovis people changed their environment by killing the mammoth, the Rapa Nui killed the trees and changed the environment. So, okay, on this slide, I highlighted and bolded things you should remember. The first human societies, Paleolithic societies, they're known for being really small. Why are they small? Can someone tell me why are Paleolithic societies small? Anybody? I'll give you 10 seconds and then I'll ask someone. Why are Paleolithic societies small? Is V here today? V, I see you. Can you see me?
I think because the natural resources, like
You think that's why they're small? Okay. Anyone else have an idea? A guess? Why are they small? Come on, come on. You got this. I believe in you. Because they spread out. Resources are limited. Yes, that's the basics, right? If you're moving around, you don't have a lot of food and you're gathering and hunting. I don't know about you, but I don't want to walk around with a ton of people. It's very inefficient. We're less likely to be successful if we have too many people. It's hard to move 1,000 people, really easy to move 25. Very important to remember that. Paleolithic societies are going to be small bands. A reason, they're going to be mobile. They're going to be following their food. There's not going to be a lot of extra food. You're not going to haul a bunch of extra food in your backpack while you walk around. You will bring some, but you're not going to do it a lot and bring a ton to make it too heavy. They're always following their food. Please remember that. They follow the food. They're egalitarian. Egalitarian, meaning equal. Think of egal, equal. Sounds silly, but just remember that. So women and men, there's not a lot of differentiation. There is some, but it's based really on what you're equipped to do. So at that time, women would go out and organize themselves in getting fruits and wheats, like picking like actually barley and such. Men would mainly go hunting, right? But there was no special like the man's the leader of the family and so on and so forth. It gets later on, it gets very much so less equal, and we'll explain. But there really is equality. We'll keep moving forward, but just remember all those bolded terms, all right? Okay. So again, one, I put in bold here that let me think about this, how to explain this. We've talked about several societies that still live like Paleolithic people. Both in Australia, we have the Aborigines people, and in Tanzania, does anyone remember the name of those people? If you don't, that's okay. But this British navigator, James Cook, he goes and observes the Australian people still living as hunter and gatherers in the 1700s. He ends up writing all this stuff down in a journal. And the 4 observations he makes that are really profound is they really had a gender-based division of labor. Like men are actually physically stronger, so they'll do activities related to that. The sharing of goods, animal meat is distributed based on what is needed. And then they had rules. So like, remember, they're small bands of people. So maybe incest, like marrying your brother or your sister, would tend to happen. But he observed that, no, that didn't happen. There was like rules about it. So even though they didn't have an organized government, we'll talk about when that happens, they did have some rules. And while they had temporary leaders, like this woman is going to organize this entire group of women while Cindy gives birth, she was only a temporary leader. There was no permanent chief or anything like that. So it was not common. It was not common to have any form of organized leadership. Please remember that. Things in Paleolithic times were much more equal and based on survival. Okay? This is the running joke for us historians. Hunter and gatherers were actually the most retired group of people in the history of time. Why do you think that? They were the most retired, relaxed people ever. They had more time to play video games than we do now. You or me. They didn't have video games, but they had more time to play them. My slide gives you the answer if you can't figure it out. So when we study these people, we know that they only went out, got the food they needed and the resources they needed, and then they just relaxed. So while they didn't have a lot, they weren't, sitting there collecting Peloton bikes and Nintendos. They were indeed relaxing. Okay, so they didn't have a large and long life expectancy. Most of them died at 35. Probably due to climate and disease, right? But it's very interesting to say that they had more leisure time than any society after it. Again, that same guy, James Cook, who was observing these Aborigines people, he noted in 1770 that like the culture seemed very happy. It's much easier to be happier with little when you're thankful to be alive, right? Okay, so we're going to keep going just a little bit. I'm going to zoom ahead. You can read all of these slides. This is a great video. You can literally watch man evolve from like what we know, even in height. Why did we grow so much in height? And our shoulders growing out by like 6 to 8 inches. It's wild. So take a look. Okay, so quick review, really quick. Could just name them in the chat or come off mute really quick. What are major words you think of when you think of the Paleolithic era? And somebody better say old. Oh dear.
Old stone.
Thank you. Thank you. Old stone. Perfect. Hunters, gatherers. Perfect.
Societies.
What'd you say?
Small societies.
Small societies. Perfect. Yes, 100%. Anything else?
Equality.
Equality. Great. Hunters, ancestors, caves. Yes, yes, yes. Temporary shelters. Yes. Perfect. They were not egalitarianism. Remember that word. They were nomadic. They were hunters and gatherers. They came out of Africa. They mastered fire. They domesticated some animals. Not a significant amount, but they did domesticate some. We talked about the dog. And then what about religion? Hopefully you can at least name that they had some sort of cyclic birth, some belief in spirits, and some belief in like the creation of the world. They didn't think they'd been around the whole time, right? Little note on the Paleolithic religion, it is really hard to get a grip on. We can't really see a lot of evidence except for those cave paintings, those Venus figurines. We really, really can't nail it down. The couple things we can see from the Paleolithic is they did have stone tools. And we noticed that they carved the arrowheads sometime about 25,000 years ago. And they did start collecting wild grains. You and I would call it like barley. We would call it wheat. It was quite different then, right? Because it's changed and evolved, but they did collect wild grains. So we have all these sort of rocks that look meaningless to me and you, but they studied them, they dated them, they were purposefully shaped into arrowheads. So it's kind of cool to think about. All right. So I want you to think all throughout this class, and it's way easy at the beginning, right? We're talking about the most basic people, the Paleolithic people, but as it gets more complex, we will want to have more cause and effect. For example, if I drank my tea when it was too hot, it might burn my mouth. What was the cause? The hot water caused it to burn my mouth, right? So what happens after? So think about this question with that in mind. What results from the miniaturization, making small, of stone tools, availability of abundant plant life, and gathering of wild grain? What do you think is going to result? What's going to happen as a result of making smaller tools, of having a lot of plants, and being able to gather wild grain? What do you think is going to happen? And I hope somebody guesses this because this is where we're headed. What's going to happen? If you have a lot of tools, you've got some great plants, you got some grains you've discovered, what are we going to do? Bum, bum, bum. Okay, plants, they could go extinct, but all I'm saying Yes, we're going to plant them. We are going to do agriculture. Excellent answer in the chat there. That is the correct one. We are going to have a surplus of food. We're going to be able to plant, we're going to be able to farm, and we will have a surplus of food. Excellent, excellent, excellent. So people start to build permanent settlements. They discover like, oh, we don't have to keep moving around. Let's find a way to keep our animals in one place. But if you stay in one place and you're in one little area, what starts happening? Think about it. If there was a fire in an airplane and you had to evacuate the airplane into the ocean, they were landing in the ocean, they open the door, what happens? Somebody has to take charge, and it's usually the person near the door, right? And he says, single file line, put your hands over your mouth, grab a bandana, get ready to get out and just jump straight into the water. Get out, jump straight into the water, jump straight into the boat, jump straight into the water, jump straight, they organize. So, but it does become unequal when you start to organize yourself for survival. And then when you stay in one place, you start forming little miniature governments, right? Okay, so we do see as archaeologists several places settling down for the first time, meaning like having communities and permanent, they don't move around. And this really does happen about 12,000 to 4,000 years ago. So that's not that long. Okay, this is just a pot from Japan, and it is commonly found in Japan, and it dates back to this era. So there are multiple of these found, so we can also use those to prove a community once existed. So it's kind of cool. Okay, we're going to cover one final society from Southern Africa called the San. This is an example of a Paleolithic group of people that choose to live similarly to how they did back in the era, but also they would no longer be considered Paleolithic, right? Because they stay in one place. Fascinating. So I'll show you a little bit about them, but this is literally a picture of them today. They live this way. Very similar to hunters and gatherers, just live that way, just like they did 5,000 years ago. They paint on rocks what they celebrate and what they do, and they are known for things they create. So similarly to Paleolithic times, they use very simple tools. They eat however much they want, and they really don't have to work very hard. Remember how I said Paleolithic people had a lot of leisure time? So did these people. They only work about 17 hours a week, but they don't want for much. You and I, we shop on Amazon. We have a lot of stuff to do, right? They're not doing that. They just are based on survival and about being equal and supporting each other and living. It's very, very fascinating. I'm not going to cover much more than that. You can read a lot, okay? Okay. I'm going to keep going. I told you. There's another society you can read about that happened and was living in California. Very, very interesting, okay? But I think I'm going to be done with this one. Okay. The last thing I did want to mention, if you've heard of the Paleolithic diet, it literally comes from this very first group of human beings that lived. Paleolithic. They ate nuts and berries, what they could pick, and meat and fish. There was no processed milk and cheese, right? So they lived very, very simply. So this famous diet that's taking in the modern day, if you look up paleo diet, it comes from the Paleolithic people. All right. So this is a review for your quiz. You don't have it this week, remember. It's going to be next week. But could someone come off mute and just really quickly answer these? I just put them at the end so you would remember. Who was in charge of gathering the majority of their food? Berries, fruits, vegetables. Who was it?
The female.
Beautiful. Women. What is the word we use to describe the more equal society between man and woman?
Equality.
Thank you. Yes, equality, egalitarianism. Yep. Okay, perfect. Okay, we have finished that. Yay! You've got to feel good about that. We are done with the entire Unit 1, Lesson 1. So impressed. So we will zoom through Neolithic in a second, but as I shared with you, let's move to the Kahoot review. All right? So I think this takes us a hot minute. I'm going to... Yay. Okay, so I'll put the game pin in the chat. If you don't remember how to get there, you go to kahoot.it. The pin is 8469360. I put everything in the chat just in case, but sweet. Just 2 quick Kahoots and we'll be on our way. Y'all are doing great. We have a lot of stuff to cover. So y'all are doing wonderful. And if people have trouble logging in, we won't wait forever. We'll move on and it's okay. Yay, I got 11 of you. Should I join you and kick your booties? I can't because I know all the answers. But someday I will do that to you. All right, we'll give one more minute and then we are going to start because we have 2 Kahoots. They're very short. Come on. You got this. Boom, 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 boom. Who are we missing? I don't see Minnie in there. Okay, there's Harley. Is Dong here? I don't see Dong. I see Schwan. Yep, there we go. Toti, I don't see you. Do I? Yes, I do. Good job. Kai back. Ooh, glad I waited this minute here. But you only have 20 more seconds. Is everyone almost here? Ah. Boom, boom. Okay. 8, 7, 4.
Teacher can't join Kahoot. I don't know why.
Oh no, it's
I
not letting you join.
I entered it right, but I don't know why I can't join Kahoot.
Okay, that's
The
okay.
code
Are you okay if we go ahead and do this one and you join the second one?
I don't know. Okay.
Okay. I'll make sure you join the second one. I'm so sorry. Okay, we're going to close this one down. I'm sorry for those of you you didn't come off mute. Like Gia Hung, thank you, by the way. We're going to get going, okay? We have to. So quick, we're going to do 2 Kahoots. I'll make sure you can join that second one. Pay attention because these are great questions for me to use. This one should be easier. These are all definitions. Okay, good. Agriculture is the practice of farming, including cultivating crops. Excellent. Okay, Chao Eng. Question 2, what is migration? The best answer is the red one, the act of moving people from one place to another. Animals can also migrate, but it's just simply from one place to another. It doesn't have to be to a differing region. Question 3, what is irrigation? We have not talked about this yet, but I'm hoping you can guess. We'll talk about it today. Perfect. Supplying for water, land, and crop growth. Yes, irrigation. So you irrigate the land. A lot of people, what they will do, we'll talk about it today, they dig out the land between the river and their farm. They dig it out so that the river leaks water into their crops and they don't have to carry buckets and buckets and buckets. Okay, we'll talk about it a lot. It's what really advances civilizations quickly. Chao Eng, let's go. Okay. What is domestication? In 10 seconds, I'll give you a hint. Oh no. Okay. Cultivation of plants and animals for food. I'm sorry that I did not click both of them. You are all correct. To tame an animal, it's not just taming, right? It's definitely taming and being able to control or be the leader of them, right? But the yellow one is correct. I'm so sorry. I'm learning how to click both answers to be correct. There should be 2 correct answers. The cultivation of plants for food and the taming of animals. Sorry, y'all are going to go down on your podium because of this. Sorry. We'll just pretend that question didn't happen. Who were the nomads? I love this picture of this home, by the way. Forgot what it's called. Perfect. People who traveled place to place without a permanent home. Perfect. Excellent. Again, sorry about the last one, but thankfully it worked out. Okay. Question 6. What were social classes? Oh no. Okay. Social classes, right? You've got the rich people, poor people. Eventually, we're going to have the Brahmins, and we're going to talk about all these different classes of people. Talking ahead, let me tell you. Okay, we've got 4 more here. What was the Paleolithic age or era? Prehistoric period of human history. Perfect. And we'll talk a minute. Why is it prehistory? Think about that. Excellent job. 3 more questions. Specialization. What is specialization? I put this picture of the arrowhead. Why would I have put this picture of an arrowhead? Excellent. It is true. So if you specialize in teaching or education when you're in college, you become an expert in teaching, right? So think of specialization. The arrowhead meant if you received an arrowhead, you were specializing in hunting or you were specializing in your craft of making arrowheads and locating stone. Great. All right. 3 more questions. What does surplus mean? We talked about this today. Surplus. More than what is needed or used. More than what is needed or used. If you have a surplus, okay, it means that it's just more. Just think of the word more. It's not left over. So you can't have a steak, eat part of it, and it's what's left. It's no. It's when you made the product, you actually had more than you ever intended. So you could move it over here. Then you cook this steak. That steak was never cooked. It's still in the fridge. Perfect. That's a very important distinction. 2 more questions. What is a land bridge? What is a land bridge? These are some hard ways of saying it. Good. I'm so glad you all were intuitive. Very good. All right, here we go. This is the very last question for Kahoot review number 1. Who is a hunter-gatherer? Whoa. Great work. People who live chiefly by hunting and harvesting, or hunting and gathering. Perfect. Okay, good job trying. Me? I'm just kidding, me. Toti, let's go. All right. Okay, everybody. I have one more Kahoot for you. Whoops. Oh, no. Having a hard time clicking on it. Sorry. This is one of my favorite ones. Has some weird ones. So hoping this one works for everyone. I'll put this new. We're almost done. This is the last review, and then we'll take a short break. 9, 3, 1, 5. And these are great reviews because typically if I reiterate a definition, it's going to be on the exam in some way, shape, or form. So I'm so glad that we had a time to review this today. Bum, bum, bum. We've got 12 people here. Oh no, we've got 11. Ah! $15 again. Come on, we can cross the threshold of 15. We've got it. Okay. I'm going to give you 30 more seconds and then let's go. We've got to wrap this up. I want to give you your short little tiny break. I think we're doing homework, right? And then the break. I was trying to give you a break closer to the end. Okay. So when you came back, it would feel like it was flying by. All right, we're going to get started. I'm sorry for those who aren't able to join. Please try to listen so that you are getting review at least for your quizzes and prepared for that, okay? When did the Paleolithic period start? I will never ask you for time periods, but what I am asking you for is just critical thinking here. Like, when do you think it started? Remember what I said. So this is arguable, right? So We can talk about Paleolithic as only including people, or we can talk about the whole region of time, right? So this, okay. So I love the spread because I really talked about people in the Paleolithic era, starting with people, right? So I would definitely argue that it's actually closer to 10,000 years ago, but some historians say that it started way back when the meteor hit and so on and so forth. So it's very debatable. It's not a big deal. It will not be on the exam. We've been talking about when people started migrating. That's important. So no worries, good guesses. Paleolithic is also known as, now there is a right answer for this. You better know this one. If you don't, I might actually cry. The Old Stone Age. There's really only one thing for that one. Good job. Question 3. According to science, the various first people came out of. According to scientists. Good, Africa. Thank you for knowing that. Well done. Paleolithic people were, so to survive, they were what? You better know this. This is easy, right? Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Y'all are doing excellent. Turn on some AC here. Okay, good. Hunters and gatherers. Excellent. Okay, we're going to breeze through. We have 5 more. The Paleolithic lifestyle was... hard and nomadic. Oh, I finally successfully did the 2-answer one. Sorry about that. Good. Okay. Paleolithic people had clear religious ideas. Evidence includes... I gave the answer in the painting, in the picture. That was embarrassing. All right, 4 more questions. Belief that all living creatures, objects, and geographical features have spirits is called... Oh, I didn't say this out loud. You're going to have to guess on this one. And the answer is not spiritism. That is not it. The yellow one is not it. I know we talked about spirits, but that is not it. This is good for your future. You'll be advanced if you know this one. It's animism. Animism. Yep. So if you think of animals, think of like if you believe that animals had spirits. So think of that in that way. I will not have that on the exam. That is not a commonly used thing. But it's fun to know because it is in our textbook. Okay. A shaman was a kind of Paleolithic. Again, only in our textbook. You will only know this if you read your textbook. It will not be on the exam. But it's to do with religion. So if you can guess one of the ones that is to do with religion, you will probably get it right. It's not on your exam. Okay, healer or priest is correct. Yeah, so healer and a priest is what a shaman is. And we'll talk about priests and shamans again when we get later in the unit, but not important for now. Again, of course, I have shaman again. The role of the shaman in Paleolithic society was, what do you think it is? Hopefully, we just talked about it a little bit. They definitely were the religious leader. They definitely did some healing. It's all of the above. Yeah. Great. Sorry, I had so many questions. Last question. Examples of Paleolithic culture in the modern world include which group of people? Hopefully you know this one. You can think of Australia. Okay, perfect. Aborigines. Yes, good job. You should remember that. Australian Aborigines. Great job. Sorry, so many questions about the shaman. Toti on the podium again. Oh, wait, well, me. Okay. And V. Excellent. Excellent work. Excellent, excellent, excellent. I'm going to stop doing that. All right, great. I try to do some Kahoots just to mix it up so it's not me on PowerPoint flipping through questions. And I try to locate good ones. I have a lot of Kahoots, and I even have this thing called Poll Everywhere. We'll do that as well. Okay, so there is some homework that I would like to wrap up with you. And so I wanted to, in these next minutes, I know we're going to take a break after this, but we had some folks who said they could not access homework. I received 7 emails over the last 2 days, and I tried to answer every single one of you. But a couple things that I noticed and were trending was that some people were having trouble accessing the reading, and some people were having trouble accessing their assignment because it was turned in late or the discussion button wasn't working. So could I have you, I'm going to stop recording for a second, drinking coffee because I'll go to the bed in the next 2 hours while you all go to school. Oh, Jihun, thank you. Perfect. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. All right. We are transitioning to the Neolithic Revolution. New. That's what I want you to know about that. Okay. This will launch us into the study of the world because there is going to be a surplus of food. People domesticate animals. We're going to travel the world. We will look at Egypt and the pyramids. We will go to China, one of the most ancient civilizations. We will study all the soldiers. It's so fun. This is the best part, in my opinion, of the first semester. And then we'll get to Rome and Greece. So from the Neolithic Revolution, we really launch ourselves. The Paleolithic, we got to get through so that we understand the structures of society. But this is just like the best. So super pumped to keep moving with you. Please know I don't have time to cover every single part of everything. So what I do is basically the highlights. I expect you, I'm going to upload this PowerPoint tonight, okay? I am going to expect you to make sure that you review these before the exam. Again, I don't have time to read every slide to you. I'm going to highlight things, and if I bold anything, pay attention to that. So we are now moving forward to the time period 10,000 years before the Common Era to 3,000 years before the Common Era. This group of 7,000 years really is very similar across the world. It might have happened in different hundreds of years, but the agricultural revolution happens almost at the same time in 7 different places around the world. So this is kind of a really cool era to talk about. When we talk about agriculture, you should immediately go to farming. You should immediately think of these people who use big farm equipment to move a lot of things, and it's basically how we eat. Okay, so think about that. So one of the teachers who teaches world history, he loves bringing this up. There is a town in the United States called Manawi, and it used to have a ton of people. However, now it only has a population of 1 person. This lady. And it's just really interesting because it's the smallest town in America. And why is that? Because the farming equipment has gotten so advanced, we've needed less and less people to actually work in agriculture, to actually farm. So when you have a farming town and you don't need that many farmers, it gets down in population. So Americans, today only 5% of Americans are farmers. I tried to look the answer up for this, but I didn't know the answer and I could not find a reliable source. What do you think the percentage of farmers are in Vietnam? Any idea? Huge? You really think so? I want to show you a website then. I don't know if this is an accurate website, but hold on. And so I pulled it up to see what you all think, but hold on. So I found it on my first search on Google. What is the percentage of farmers in Vietnam? So wait till you click on this. It's called Traditional Economics, but it talks about land, not farmers. So, oh, you can't see my screen. Let me share my screen. So this is the website I got it from, Trading Economics. And it says that land is 39%, but I could not find the amount of farmers on here. So I was just wondering what you think the percentage of farmers are in Vietnam. I tried to look it up. So somebody said huge. Anyone else? Like, I really am curious. So curious, in fact.
I think it's more than 50%.
50? You think more than 50% of people are farmers? Really? No way.
I think 20% or 10.
20 or 10?
It's
Okay. It's fascinating to think about, right? Like who the people in, like when I think of Ho Chi Minh City and I think of Hanoi, I interact with all of you in education, right? So I don't really see them, but I'm curious. You all think that's a lot of people you all think are farmers. Whoa. Okay. Now I have to fact check you all. I got to find a better resource, huh? Okay. So I've highlighted this green. The reason why is I want to make sure I cover it. 12,000 years ago, the new Stone Age begins. And how it begins is people decide they want to stay and they don't want to keep following their food. So essentially, they domesticate animals and they domesticate plants. That's a weird way of saying it, but really they do. They train plants and they breed these animals and they fence them in and they start living in little tiny communities. So what they end up doing is, because they're planting all these crops and they're using their animals for food and they're breeding them, there starts to become a surplus of food. When you think of Neolithic, I want you to think of surplus, because what happens when you have a surplus of food? Anybody? Cause and effect? Surplus of food equals what? What do you think? Oh, come on. You can take a wild guess. Oops, someone has a guess in the chat here. People, thank you. You literally grow more people. Yes. If you have a surplus of food, your population is going to rise. So the population around the world expands greatly. So when we talk about domesticating plants, one of your homework assignments was to define the word teosinte or teosinte. We were sharing our screens earlier. Does anyone remember what it is? Teosinte or teosinte? Boom, boom, boom. No? Okay. I'll get to it. Think of corn, think of wheat and barley. Any idea? Okay. But the Neolithic or the agricultural revolution, it starts in all the places that are marked in orange. Now, all of those places are remarkably similar. They're not too far north and they're not too far south. Why? Why are they all near the middle? What's so special about the middle of the world?
I think they have the right climate for crops to grow.
What is that region? What's it called?
The Fertile Crescent.
Oh, I love that. Fertile Crescent is an actual place. Yeah, and it's along there. The word I'm looking for is the equator. If we were to put it on a globe, it's all close to the equator. Yeah, excellent job. Look at where the Fertile Crescent is. We talked about that already, right? That's where it's really the best. It's the first. It's, oh my goodness. It's like the rise of society in my eyes. I get really excited because it moves us into so much history. But if you look at all those orange places on this heat map, this is where it all started. Now, if you look at the yellow, look what the key on the bottom of the map says. It says the most productive agriculture areas of the modern world. So we're talking about now, most productive agriculture areas of the modern world. So you can see like the modern world changes a little bit. It's not just based on this wonderful heated climate and perfect weather, but all the places started in the orange near the equator. Okay. That will definitely be a question. Then a seminal event, an important event during this part is the evolution of other species. So the modern day horse, it's really quite large, right? You have to like jump up to get on it. If you're taking equestrian at Marianapolis, we actually have little stools that you step on to get on your horse. So if you come to campus, you'll get on a modern horse, but you'll have to get on a stool to get on that horse. And so please watch this video when you have time. It is a recap of the agricultural revolution. If you didn't have time to do the reading, this is an excellent recap. But domestication of life. If you are a domesticated person, you're likely staying at home, you're complex, maybe you use computers, and you love the city life, putting your hands up, right? You're not moving around, okay? But mutual dependence, when they start domesticating and staying put, mutual dependence means the crops and the animals depend on the human. The human depends on the crops and the animals. Why are the plants so dependent on the human? Put the question in the chat. Why are plants dependent on the human as well?
They need water.
Yes, beautiful. They need water. And we know that society hasn't always lived right next to water. We know it's the smart thing to do, but you can't just like plant everything next to the riverbed, right? So we know that they're going to rely on human beings to literally water them. And it's not always going to happen by bringing your bucket on your head. They're going to start digging, like I told you, irrigation. We'll talk about that too. The largest civilizations started digging. So again, dependence, this mutual dependence. This is from a pyramid in, you guessed it, ancient Egypt. It has a lot more meaning than you think it does. Why or what do you see in this picture? What do you see? Just start with what do you see in this primary source? Anybody, come off mute. What do you see? Come on.
Oh, cows.
Perfect. What else? What else?
People watering the plant.
Okay, perfect. Yes. What else?
They're taking the milk from the cows.
Perfect. Yes. What else do you see? I have a question for you. And this is deeper. This is if you're writing a paper and you're really, advanced, you might see this. Where are the cattle located in relation to the humans? In this painting, where did they put the cows?
Put the cows above the human.
Yeah. And if you were to paint something above, it's usually more important. So I just want to point out that there's some sort of reverence or respect for the cattle, for the humans to be going underneath and coming back up. And it's like a cycle. It could be cyclical as well. So there's many actual arguments for this and why they painted them these ways. We also know the Egyptians did that frequently, right? They have all these boxes and we'll look at them a lot. But this is a really big painting and it says a lot about what they thought. So they held cattle in really high regard. I just want to point that out. I just put a picture of food. I love that agriculture basically gets donuts because I love donuts. So we can talk about that later. But the thing that I want you to take away from this agricultural idea and talking through history of agriculture is by 2050, there will be over 3+ billion more people on the planet. We will need more than 100% more of the food we currently produce to actually feed that surplus of people. That's a hard one to comprehend. What more can we do than what we're doing to produce food? Do we need a one-child policy? What are the steps we can take? Just think about it. You don't have to have an answer. All right. So the Neolithic revolution, I told you, it happens at various parts of the world at the same time. So if you go back to that map that I showed you, whoop, you can see the Fertile Crescent, right? It's sitting right on top of Saudi Arabia, what we know today. You can see that it's happening in Mesoamerica, Central America, basically like Mexico and Honduras and all those places you hear about. It's happening in South America. It's way north of Chile, but it's kind of like on the very top of South America. And I would even venture to say it's really happening where it connects to Central America. We'll talk about that. But look in Africa. I think it's so funny that it's kind of happening like next to the desert and not necessarily like right next to the ocean. So, and if you know where the Nile River is actually way closer to Saudi Arabia, and that's not really where it starts. Civilization is really going to move there in Africa, but it doesn't start there. And then look way over on the east at New Guinea. Why do you think it happened on an island? Isn't that strange? China totally makes sense to me, right? You're going to have an influence and influx of people, 2 to 3 major river systems. Very, very makes sense to me. I don't know about you. But just remember that it happened sometime between 12,000 and 4,000 years ago, all right? But why then? People ask, like, why was it right then? Did some man just decide they wanted to live that way? Well, you could say that. People were starting to get smarter. People are starting to invent things and think of different technology that's going to help them actually farm faster and better and store food longer. So it's kind of interesting. It didn't happen overnight, but it really happens during a migration. So you could say it happened and it coincided with the end of the last ice age, so the weather was more temperate. That's one. And you're going to have to read all of these slides on your own. It's just related to the different theories, right? The ice age ends. There's a lot of wild things that grow. So there's a lot. But I'm going to stop here and highlight one thing. As they domesticate all of those plants like wheat and barley, and they start actually planting, growing them, and like making sure they succeed and they grow wild and they grow in your garden, they become what we need in bread and rice. And guess what? Only 5 of the world's 200,000 plant species actually supply the essential calories that we need. And only 14 large mammals have been domesticated successfully. I think those are startling statistics. That it took us a long time to get to the agricultural revolution, and is it by chance that we chose the 5 plant species that would help us feed the majority of all of our food that we eat? That is wild to me, mind-blowing. 5 out of 200,000. So remember, 14 of the large animals get domesticated, but that's not a lot, right? These are just 5 of the major, or 6 of the major, I guess I would call it like in the wheat family, like some sort of grains that help us survive. Think of rice, think of wheat, maize being corn, modern day corn, millet and barley, sorghum. The Fertile Crescent, so someone mentioned that. Excellent job. It's the first place. It is the absolute first place. So please remember that. It had a really quick agricultural revolution and a lot of people settled there. They settled there in part because of the excellent ground. I want you to think about if you dug into the ground and you discovered like mud, like clay, and you realize like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get it wet. I'm going to shape it in these little bricks and I'm going to build housing that's going to last and protect me from cold weather, from rain. It's going to be great. So we can study the Fertile Crescent a lot because it is in a place where there's a lot of I'm losing it. I am so sorry. Archaeological dig sites. So we have a lot of objects that we can study first glance. So watch on your own. This is a video review. It's like 10 minutes long and it will actually, it's called a crash course because it literally teaches you everything about the agricultural revolution and it talks to you about the Fertile Crescent. The Fertile Crescent is great because there's a lot of rivers. I apologize if I'm going too fast. I'm trying to breeze through this because this is the last day we have to cover this. Large settlements happen. What happens? Is equality going to still exist when there are large settlements? Somebody answer. No or yes?
I
Is it?
think no.
Yes.
No.
No, right? People start living together, people start fighting. If you all have siblings, you already know. Is there egalitarianism in your family? There might be a close egalitarianism society in your family. You might all be kind to each other, but in the end, who gets to make the final say? Your parents or you? Usually your parents, right? Like if you decided to move. No? Does someone disagree with me? Oh no. Please don't be afraid. Please tell me why. The point is, when you start living in larger groups together like this in housing, organizations start to form and it's going to be less equal. We have a lot of innovative tools, so we have a lot of things left behind. Mostly people use antlers. They sharpened blades from, okay, let me think about this. A lot of stones, basalt. They use different types of, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I'm blanking, but they would sharpen the arrowheads. And so they started to realize that iron, they started to run into melting metals. So we're going to get to that too. So there was life in the Sahara Desert. Remember when I showed you and I was like, and look at Africa, it happened right next to the desert. They domesticated things like the donkey and the camel, and they did it all near the Red Sea. So it's very fascinating. Africa is the only place in which animals and like domesticating them, taming them, happened before the domestication of plants. Makes sense though, right? The desert. So they were actually working on transportation, moving those animals, having the animals help them get to fresh water way sooner than they actually started planting the plants in the ground. So kind of fascinating. I'll never ask you about the types of food in what region. Don't focus on that. No big deal. Okay, so this is the top of Africa and this is the picture. You can see the ancient rivers, very famous one being the Nile River, right? But it goes right, if you go visit Egypt, they have the seas, they have the oceans, they have the Nile River. But then if you just keep going west, man, you're going to hit the Saharan desert and it is hot and things don't survive there. Very few plants do. So please remember, like, it's amazing that the agricultural revolution happened there as well. So sub-Sahara Africa, like below, it does happen and they are able to harvest sorghum. This is sorghum, a picture of sorghum. And then here's, it looks like okra to me, onset in Ethiopia. And here's a koala nut. I don't know if you have these. We certainly do not. We do not have them in the USA. But the America, what's going on in the Western world? We've been talking about the Eastern world. Well, if you remember my very first lecture, I told you a secret about the Americas. I told you that in 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. And I told you that in the Western world, there weren't horses or cattle. What was the largest animal there? The llama. The llama or the alpaca. So over in Canada, North America, Central America today, way back when in the Neolithic and agricultural revolutions, they're behind. They're struggling. They're not doing quite as well and as fast developing societies. The reason why is they didn't have a large animal to help bigger groups and civilizations start forming. So it did not have this large rise in farming and agriculture in the same way that it happened in the Eastern world. They did manage to harvest and domesticate corn. It was this ancient plant called teosinte, but it's nothing like modern day corn today. But that is the ancient grain that would become corn. So it's kind of cool. But here's the alpaca. If you didn't know what I was talking about, the cute llama, that was the largest animal to be domesticated in the Americas. And remember, there was no rice and barley, and they weren't like making like domestication of those as they were in Europe and in China and in just Asia in general. So they were really working with corn. It's why you're going to see when Columbus comes over, he takes back corn because corn was a huge crop in the Americas. So there's a picture just so you see teosinte, the ancient corn, and to how it was really kind of engineered and changed over the evolution. And look at it now. Corn is huge. Modern day corn is enormous. So this is kind of a cool thing. All right, we're going to skip all of this. The big takeaway I want you to take home from today, the shift that happens between the Paleolithic to the Neolithic era. It's way quicker and way more efficient in the Eastern world, and particularly in the Fertile Crescent, than it is in Africa. Why? Africa has the desert. They domesticate animals first. Why is it Fertile Crescent way faster and better than Mesoamerica, Middle America? They only had the alpaca. They didn't have large horses and cattle, right? So if I were to ask the test question, where does the Neolithic and agricultural revolution happen the fastest? Fertile Crescent. If I said why, they had better animals and their environment was better and more conducive. It had easier access to water. Okay? Please remember that. Okay. You can read these next couple slides on yourself. Okay? And, okay. I said you're going to read all these slides on your own. Oh dear. Please go through them. They're worth reading. But I'm going to skip on over to, my goodness. Okay. Whew. We're almost there, y'all. We have 2 minutes and I'm going to try to cover the very end. So in village societies, as people started building houses and they tried to stay there, the lineage system was often in place. What does that mean? What is a lineage? Anybody? Whoops. Real quick. What is a lineage? Anyone? Really quick. What is it? Think line. Okay? Your family line, your lineage system. So things are passed down. If you own a farm, you're going to give it to your daughter, your son. And what it does is, sorry, I keep skipping ahead. The lineage system gives power to like the eldest person, right? The oldest sibling is going to inherit and run the farm and they'll be in charge of it. They'll take care of the younger sisters and brothers, but that's how it works. Well, that happens in these little communities. If grandpa is in charge of, all his kids and then all their kids, when he dies, who takes over, right? So it's all about your lineage. And what it does is it keeps power out of the hands of just one person, right? Because the family splits and power goes to the next. So there's not just one chief. You don't vote yet. There's no sort of democracy. But what it is, it's based on like being born in a line. I want you to think of it that way, okay? But inequality does sleep in the agricultural revolution. And we'll talk about this a little bit more. I know you got to go to your next class soon. So I just wanted to give us like two minutes to cover any questions that you might have of anything we've covered. I will cover the last couple of slides in a recording for you for next week. But I don't want you to stress about homework.